Are you feeling like you're running to catch up with the world because it's moving faster than ever? Trust me, you are not alone. And today's guest is here not only to help us figure out how to keep up, but to thrive. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of No Woman Left Behind. I am Rosie Zelinskas, your host, and I am so happy that you can join us today. We are diving into one of the hottest topics in the workplace right now, AI and adaptability. We'll explore why AI is changing the game faster than ever, how you can ride the wave instead of feeling overwhelmed, and the exact skills you'll need to stay ahead. My guest today is Ann Reilly, a certified adaptability coach, helping organizations to thrive during the fastest pace of change in our lifetime. She helps leaders and teams identify the changes impacting their business with a focus on how AI will alter the landscape of their industry, job, and skill set needed to survive in the workplace. So stick around because what Ann has to share could totally change the way you look at your career. And trust me, you don't want to miss this conversation.
Are you ready to accelerate your career? Whether you're just starting out, making your move up the ladder, or ready to take the fast lane, there's one question you need to ask yourself. Where do I stand? Introducing the Promotion Readiness Quiz. In just a few minutes, discover if you're an emerging leader, a progressive pro, or a career trailblazer. Get tailored tips and strategies to help you grow, elevate your skills, and move forward faster. Take the quiz now and step into the next chapter of your career with confidence. Your career breakthrough starts here. Take the Promotion Readiness Quiz now.
Ann, thank you so much for being here today. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Rosie. I'm very excited to be here with you today.
Yeah, me too. So today we're going to talk about adaptability, which is a perfect topic because, as you well know, the world is changing very quickly. One of the things that you and I talked about in the introductory session is that AI has been around since the 60s. However, it's only in the last 20 months or so that it's exploded with ChatGPT. I would love for you to explain why that is.
Sure, no problem. And I think it's actually been around for the 50s, so even a decade earlier. So, now we're coming up to this point where it just seems to be exploding everywhere. And there's a couple different factors that brought us to this point. And one of the, or two of the main things are that, there's enough compute power to manage large data sets, which AI needs in order to be useful to us in our daily lives. And also ChatGPT, when it launched a little over a year ago, created this interface for individuals to be able to use that. So before, companies and engineers were using AI in terms of their programming and supply chain and things like that. But they with this interface that's a very clean, easy to use interface, they put it into the hands of millions and millions of people around the earth all at once. And so that was really the big event, the interface that made it possible and created this explosion. And then on top of that, people just started creating tools to tap into and overlay on ChatGPT. And then you saw the explosion of marketing tools, of sales tools, of any type of tool you can think of now. And it's a daily event where there's more and more ChatGPT or AI tools coming out.
That's amazing. I know that AI has been around for quite a long time because even when I was, younger and I would go on my Aetna app, there would be a chat box or whatever. So I know it's been around for a long time, but I didn't realize it was around since the 1950s. That's incredible. Yeah. And so the reason why I invited you to come on to the No One Left Behind podcast is because people are struggling, and some people are like, "Oh, AI, it's not going to stay around." Well, I beg to differ, and I'm sure you do too, because This era reminds me of the Industrial Revolution when we were, starting to see all this machinery, factories opening up. And the reason why I wanted to talk about adaptability, and you are an adaptability coach, so I'll have you explain that in a second, but people are hard pressed to adapt to how quickly things are changing. As you well know, people don't like change to begin with. But generative artificial intelligence, like you said, with the interface of ChatGPT, it is absolutely incredible. And when I show people, and I'm using AI a lot to show people how to optimize their job search, because you can use AI for every step of the process. So how do you see AI disrupting the workplace, from your perspective as an adaptability coach? And more importantly, how are people supposed to be able to adapt so quickly to all of this?
Sure. So there's different ways you can think about it in our lifetime. We had the internet that came out in the mid 90s. And, think about how, if you were in the working world then, how that changed your life. And that really, there's a desktop or laptop on every desk, and your productivity surged, and you had access to, any type of information, in the world. And that was really a big step from, how we were working before, or how we were learning at school as well. We were going to the library and getting books out, for those of us that were, doing that. And now, students don't have to go to the library necessarily. And, it's also, AI has also been compared to the age of electricity, because it's that profound. That think about when people didn't have electricity and what their life was like that, and how it just changed everything in their day-to-day life. And so this is really a seismic shift in our working and personal lives. And there's a phrase that today is the fastest it's ever been, and it's the slowest it will ever be.
Oh yeah.
So think about that a little and be like, okay, I got through today. Tomorrow's going to be faster.
Yes, yes.
And Peter Diamandis, who's the head of Singularity University, has also said that we're going to see more change in this next decade that we've seen in the last 100 years. So that also gives you a bit of perspective of how much change is coming. Wow. So it's really, the AI genie is not going back in the bottle. It's out there, and we do really need to figure out how to work with it, what its strengths are, what its weaknesses are, what the dangers are as well, and what the opportunities are.
Right. It's so interesting. I always think of, like you said, you were explaining history. So you said that in the next 10 years, it's going to be the fastest that things change, from previous history. And I always think of history like in the early 1900s when the car came about and things came about. And then, of course, from, this last like 125 years, it has just gone up exponentially. So you're saying the next 10 years is going to go up exponentially again.
Yes, exactly.
It's insanity as to how fast things are going. Yeah. I know I use an application called Swell AI. Don't get any affiliation or anything like that from them, but they are specifically for podcasters. And so they will help me come up with a lot of different copy, components, content for the production of the podcast, which just makes things so much easier because, instead of me having to sit there and transcribe it's transcribed for me, and it's just an incredible tool. So, and I know that there's practically an AI tool for different industries now, and all things coming out. So how are people supposed to deal with all this change, Ann?
Yeah. Well, I'd just like to say before that, just to give another reason for this speed, because I think this might also help and to think about how to deal with it all. But technologies, there's so many different technologies out there. There's blockchain, there's AI, there's solar, lots of different things going on. And they were all being kind of developed on their own path.
Mm-hmm.
But now, particularly with AI, the technologies are converging.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all speeding up because of this convergence. So they're not in their own lane anymore. Things are all merging and picking up speed together. So I think that's also important to know, because it just is going that's a big reason for this acceleration in the velocity of change. And so how do we deal with all of it? I think the first thing is really to be aware of it and accept that this is happening, and we're not going back there. We're not going back to a slower time, and things are going to continue to progress and go faster. And really, for women, particularly in the working world, I think, we have to take charge of our careers, which are great at helping women do, in this new AI world. So realizing, that there's going to be a whole new skill set needed at work, and trying to identify what, those skill sets are. LinkedIn has reported that by 2030, 65% of the skills needed for a job are going to change. Mm-hmm. So that's essentially a whole new job. Yeah. So, what does your job look like today? And what might it be in, 2 years and 5 years? And what are those skill sets that are going to, that you're going to need? This is happening today already. Last week, Intuit laid off 1,800 people who did not fit with their new AI strategy. And they said that they're going to hire 1,800 people that can help them to implement this strategy. And I really feel that needs to be a wake-up call to employees that, hey, this strategy planning is going on at the executive levels. And, we as employees really need to take charge of it and understanding, asking the questions, what are we thinking about AI? How is it going to impact our business? What do I need to reskill and upskill on? And, start asking questions like that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So I know you had mentioned before that 45% of CEOs think that their companies are not going to be viable in the next 10 years.
Yep.
But, again, back to the Industrial Revolution, or when the internet came about, there were things that, yes, AI is going to save time to do, but there's still things that AI is never going to be able to do, like a human being.
Sure.
So when these CEOs are thinking that their companies won't be viable in 10 years, where are they coming from that perspective?
Well, they're coming from the fact that the world is changing so quickly that if they stay on this same trajectory, if they stay, with the same marketing, the same product development, the same supply chain, even in the same, how they communicate to their customer base, that if they don't adapt to this new world, then they're not going to, and at the speed that they need to, then they're going to get disrupted by a startup, by somebody in an adjacent industry, by, another black swan event, something like that. So, these 45% of the CEOs, which I think it probably should be higher, are really thinking about what do they need to do in order to change the trajectory of the company. Okay. And, on the flip side, I'll also point out that employees are already exhausted about change happening at the company.
Yeah.
And in 2016, there were, say, 2 planned enterprise changes per year that employees had to deal with. In 2022, there were 10. So that's a big leap, and there's big workloads. There's do more with less, and we have another change coming through the door. So deal with that as well. So you have this gap between CEOs who are like, we need to change, we need to go faster, we need to do things differently, and employees who are exhausted and near burnout.
Yeah. So I experienced everything that you just said. So I just ended my corporate career last year, and we noticed, like, as managers, when I was a first manager, we could remember the majority of the content, by heart, and we would know it, and we could, answer it. And as time went on, and exactly what you said happened, like more initiatives. Yeah. And then you had things coming from, I was in the insurance industry, coming from the product, and then the actuary, and then marketing, and, just so many, and then just like big strategy changes. And then after a while, you couldn't keep up with the information. You had to be looking things up because your brain can only retain so much information. And then we wondered, when we went to audit the files, we wondered why people missed stuff, because we were changing things constantly. So it wasn't their fault, for sure. So I definitely experienced that. So I just want to be clear that these CEOs that are thinking that their company is going to be obsolete in 10 years, that's because they're not changing with the time. So that obviously would be a huge contributor. Now, I know that some companies are going to have firewalls for AI. So how then can an employee ask to adapt to that change if they don't have access to that AI? And it might just be those companies that are not willing to do any changes. But what's your perspective on that?
Yeah, I think that's very interesting. And that, I think, is part of how an employee needs to take charge of their own career, because they do need to develop those skills. And there's actually a trend now called BYOAI, which is bring your own AI to work. So meaning that employees, whether or not it's sanctioned, are using AI at work. They might be using it on a different device, laptop, but they're recognizing, like, hey, I can get my work done faster if I use ChatGPT for these, this type of work. But they can't do it on their work device because of these firewalls. So it is something where I really do think that employees need to talk to managers, and managers talking to leaders of, like, how are we going to manage this? Because if you have employees who really do want to upskill, reskill, and the company is not supporting it, then they're going to, your most curious employees are probably going to leave.
Yeah.
Because they recognize that, hey, I want to learn. I want to be a part of this new AI revolution, and I can't do it here. So it is I think, a leadership issue at a company of how are we going to really elevate the skill set of our employees while protecting, the systems at the company.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, I could just picture some basic analysis, not even anything in depth, like the actuarial science department, or I'm sorry, the actuaries would be doing a lot of analysis. But even, an underwriter at the desk, if they're trying to figure out, okay, how's my book doing? They can pop in some of the reports that they get and then ask AI to help them analyze that information. And it's a game changer, because then you don't have to and like figure it out, wonder, like, what should I analyze? Once you get that analysis, then the thing that I love about AI is that you can volley back and forth with it. It's like, no, that's quite right. I need more numbers, whatever the situation is, but to me, it's fun to be able to kind of figure out what path you want to go down. And one of the other things that I think is so important to mention is that the prompts that you use are so critically important, because as we all know, garbage in, garbage out. So if you know how to write really good prompts, then that alone is a skill.
That's a
Now,
big skill. Yep.
yeah. Now, you had mentioned that 25% of skills at jobs have changed in the last 8 years
Yep.
already, and
Yep.
going to continue changing. So, how do you see? So, that example that you gave with like the 1,800 people that are being let go, and then they're being replaced with 1,800 people that are more up and running on AI. What would you say to someone that is in that situation that is trying to figure out how to skill up and they have no idea what to do? As an adaptability coach, what would you say to that person?
Sure. So, in terms of adaptability, we do kind of look at the basics, the core. The core of adaptability. And we look at adaptability as how do you react to new information, to uncertainty, and to change circumstances. And we look at it on three different pillars. So the first is your skill set. So that's around things like mindset and grit and mental flexibility and unlearning and resilience. So, in terms of, say, your mental flexibility, how are you looking at, are you out searching for different opinions, different points of view, different ways to do things, and incorporating that into your thinking at work? So that's a type of skill that we look at in adaptability. We also look at your character. So how do you actually adapt? So that looks at things like introversion and extroversion, and both introverts and extroverts can adapt to change, but they do it in very different ways. So the introvert might need to process a lot of information first and then come back and discuss it, where the extrovert will want to talk all day long about the change and have multiple opinions and want to talk to everybody in the group about it. And you need to also communicate with introverts and extroverts about the changes in different ways. So that's kind of important for leaders as well. And then we also look at your motivation style. Are you play to win, play to protect, your emotional range, your hope, which is very important as well. So where's your optimism level in this? And that really does have an impact on your ability to change. So do you have hope in the future in yourself? Do you have agency? Do you have multiple pathways that you can think of solving problems? And then we also look at the environment, which is really important, and we touched upon it with the firewall issue. But overall, does your environment support change, or does that hinder change? And I have had the experience of being in environments where people on my team brought really great innovative ideas to me, and we implemented it as an experiment, and then we presented it to a larger group, to the more senior staff, and we got told to shut it down, even though it was really helping us run our business well. And that was soul crushing. And so that was an environment that was not supportive of change, and in fact, people responded as like, well, why should I bother? Why should I bring these innovative ideas that will help our business? Because it's not gonna happen. And those people.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Did they give you an explanation as to why they didn't want to go forward with those ideas?
So one of the reasons was that they were going to implement something at a larger scale in down the road in a couple quarters, and we actually suggested that they look at the solution that we had already proved out that was working, and that got shot down. So it was, it was something at the corporate strategy level that we were disrupting, and they didn't like that disruption.
Got it. Now, you said a lot there, but I think the bottom line for me, as far as like people dealing with that adaptability has a lot to do with their mindset and their growth mindset specifically, where you need to identify where you're holding yourself back and try to skill up, try to figure out where you can be better, all that stuff. And you also said agency. So
Yes.
I'm a certified high performance coach. And when we talk about agency, it's like, how are you behaving? What actions are you taking that
Right.
are or aren't making an impact?
Yep.
And that's exactly what we're talking about here, because again, if you're listening out there and you haven't gone into ChatGPT, then I will put a link on how to actually go and sign up for a free ChatGPT account, but you can obviously Google it. You are going to be falling behind
Yep.
very quickly. And so, and I know you had said earlier that 65% of our skills are going to change by 2030. How are they going to change? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, that's part of the uncertainty that we need to be able to navigate because we don't know yet. And so there will be job losses due to AI, but there's also going to be job creation. And one of the things that I would advise to do is really kind of staying on top of these trends in your industry and understanding where it's heading and what skill sets you need to develop. And you can talk to other people in your team, or people at different companies. What are they doing to gear up? Certainly talking to your manager, your leaders about, hey, what what's going to be required? What is our strategy? What type of skill sets, does the CEO think we're going to need? And also talking to different industry groups about, what's happening in our industry, and really diving into the trends and taking advantage of the courses that are being offered to learn these new skill sets in this AI age.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So how do you build that plan? And where do you start? Because again, there's so many people. So I do a lot of coaching for some clients for resumes. And then when we start talking about it, I always ask, have you used AI ever? And 9 out of 10 times, they haven't used AI.
Mm-hmm.
People that are coming through, different various organizations. But when you're in the corporate world and you're trying to figure out where do you start, how do you build that plan to become adaptable, and trying to,
Right.
talk to your manager and keep up with, again, how fast all of this is exploding, where do you start?
Right.
Imagine a space where your career aspirations are supported by a community that truly understands your journey. A space designed for women like you, ready to elevate their careers. Our monthly membership includes everything from expert training and monthly workshops to a custom career roadmap. Join a supportive community where group coaching and networking turn your professional goals into achievable milestones. Celebrate your wins with a network of women who are as invested in your success as you are. Unlock the leader within.
Right. Well, when I'm working with individuals on an adaptability plan, I do start with what are their career goals. And, do they want to get promoted? Do they want to shift into a different role? Do they want to, do something completely new? Do they want to be a manager? So really understanding what's your career goal in the next 1 to 2 years. And then we'll look at their level of adaptability and, through an assessment. And when we look at career employability, there are 3 dimensions that we really focus on, and those are mental flexibility, unlearning, and hope. So, the mental flexibility allows you to, as I touched on before, to really go out and explore different points of view, look at competing tasks, competing demands, and importantly, not have this drain you. So that this is something that is energizing to you, that you're taking in this conflicting information and conflicting demands and are able to handle it well. Unlearning is something related but different. So how do you stop doing things? How do you let things go, whether it's skills or processes or habits that aren't useful to you anymore? How do you stop those so that you can learn new things for today's world? And then the hope is around are you confident? Do you have that belief in yourself that you can do this? And can you think of multiple pathways in order to solve these problems or overcome these challenges? So we take those in combination with your career goals. So if it's I need to be a manager, in the next 2 years, or I want to be a manager, so what's your mental flexibility around that? You might need to manage multiple generations, and those are different demands, needs, that are coming from those employees. So how do you do that? You might, AI, how are you going to incorporate AI into your management, into your development of the team if you want to be a manager? What specific skills do you need to develop there? So we'll do that building plan and really help the person to understand, what are the skills they need to go out and explore and find out what are the skills they need to develop. And then, we do talk a lot about what are the habits that are going to support this skill building. Is it, I'm going to spend 15 minutes a day on ChatGPT, and I'm going to learn about management techniques, through this interaction with ChatGPT, or, whatever is related to, the new skills that they need to acquire.
Got it. So, so those three components, they're part of the adaptability quotient. Is that
Yes.
the assessment? Okay.
Correct.
That's awesome. And so if someone were trying to figure out how to get an adaptability assessment, how would they be able to do that?
Well, they could certainly contact me, and we could do the assessment, and then we go through they're very comprehensive results, and this is all really about building awareness and in your skills, what type of person you are as you relate to change, but also really as well talking about the environment, as I mentioned. So making sure that you are in that right environment, or how do you also talk to your manager about creating a change in the environment? I mean, I've also been a part of that. Like I got into an environment that I felt was a bit toxic, and I actually changed my mindset around it to be like, you know what, I'm going to approach this in a different way. And it really freed, me up and did change my whole experience there. Yeah. So, there's ways that you can also change your environment, even if you're in a big company.
Right. And a lot of it is just how we react to those external triggers, right? That's
Sure.
what we do a lot with in certified high performance coaching. It's like, okay, well, your husband's going to still do whatever they do, or your wife's going to do whatever they do to annoy you, but it's up to you to be annoyed or to not be annoyed. And that can change your whole experience, like you just said. So absolutely. Okay, so I want to shift the conversation a little bit to your story and how and did you become an adaptability coach? And I just want to, for those people that didn't get it, like if you can just explain a little bit more what an adaptability coach does. But how did you get there from your work and then, where you are today?
Sure. I spent most of my corporate career in advertising and sales, and I've had an international career. I started off in Hong Kong, and then I was in Singapore doing sales for a media company in Southeast Asia. And I with my husband, moved to California, where I did work for Intuit. So that's why I'm very close to that story, and helped launch one of the first personal finance websites, Quicken.com. And then I worked for Yahoo, doing in sales leadership, both in New York and then over here in Europe. I'm based now in Barcelona. And following that, I worked for a startup opening up their international offices. But, along the way, I encountered a lot of change. I got laid off more than once, and really had to take charge of my careers at multiple points in order to find a new job and things like that. But I decided at one point, I had a kind of a pivotal moment, actually in a client meeting, where I thought, I can't do this anymore. And I really needed to pivot. And I pivoted into the innovation and disruption space and worked for a company called OpenExo, which helps companies to grow 10 times faster than their peer set by looking at an exponential organization framework and how do you incorporate emerging technology into your workflow. And that, I'm still working on exo work, but I also, as I dove into it, that was more about the business model, and I really wanted to get closer to the team and the leadership, because that was really where my passion lies. I have always loved helping people develop skills and empowering people on my team to perform and grow and learn new skills. And so actually through the OpenExo community, I did meet the founders of AQAI, who have developed this adaptability framework. And that it really was something that spoke to me about, this just makes so much sense, because, I lived in that corporate world. I lived in the internet world. And then I saw all of this technology that was developing so fast, and then this converging technology, which we talked about, and seeing that and being in a community that is talking about that all day long. When I go back to the normal corporate world, I'm thinking most people are not ready for the change that is going to happen. Right. And it's going to shock a lot of people in terms of job loss or not having the right skills, things like that. And so I thought that, this was a way for me to help people to adapt, to these changing times. I find it a very exciting time, but I know that change is hard for a lot of people. I thrive on it, but I understand that it is difficult, and stability is where a lot of people revert to, but we're not in a stable period of time at the moment.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I remember even back in the day when we had VCRs, and I had, VHS tapes. And at the time, my grandfather's like, I don't know how to deal with that. Like, how do you rewind it and all this stuff? And me being a kid back then, I'm like, oh, grandpa, it's like, no big deal. But, like you said, the same thing happened in the Industrial Revolution, and we're in this technology. Well, even like, it's been happening our entire like existence of human beings, right? But it's just so fast nowadays, because when we went from horses and buggies to cars, people resisted that, Sure. And so, but it's just a matter of accepting that the world is changing, and how much and how fast do you want to embrace it so that you don't fall behind.
Right. It is.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm doing with my adaptability coaching work. And LinkedIn actually just named adaptability as the top skill of the moment. So, they're seeing all of this data, they're talking to all of these companies, and it's a skill that companies and hiring managers want. So who are these people that can be flexible, that can seize new opportunities, that can get the project, these these difficult projects across the finish line, that they'll jump back when they're, when they have a setback, they'll get up and move forward. And how are they also going to, learn these new skills? And, it's a skill that is going to be so valuable. And I actually also think it helps people to really, as they're looking for a new job, or as they're talking, asking for a promotion, of it, thinking about these different dimensions of adaptability can really help you, showcase your value to, your boss and to your company.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, to me, this is fun. I'm by no means a guru in technology, and it does take me a little bit longer to figure things out, but I always end up figuring it out, probably the hard way, because sometimes even when my daughter's over here and I'm doing something on my phone, she's like, "Mom, what are you doing?" Like, do it this way. And I'm like, "Oh," I'm like, "Why didn't you tell me that?" She's like, "We figured you knew." I'm like, well, obviously she doesn't know what I don't know, and I don't know what she knows. So a lot of times it's just she's observing me doing something, and I'm like, trying to do it the hard way. She's like, "Mom, you could do it better this way." I'm like, okay. So my kids teach me. Yeah.
That's a really good point, Rosie. And I think, we talk a lot about women having mentors at work, and I really believe that everybody should, but they should also have a reverse mentor. So somebody that's younger than them, so that the younger generation, they're digital natives, they do things different, they talk different, they communicate different, and really, having that reverse mentor can help you, get through and understand and adapt to these changes, faster and easier.
Yeah, absolutely. And for anybody that's listening out there, if you're interested in learning, I just said this to somebody the other day, go into ChatGPT, create a free account. There's a free account and a paid account, and then just start asking, "Hey, ChatGPT, give me a tutorial on how to use you." And GPT will give you, step-by-step tutorial. And if you don't understand, say, "Please re-explain it to me a different way." And you can ask it a million inquiries and it'll give you a million answers without attitude, without getting mad at you, without all that stuff. But I think it's phenomenal technology. It is, I think a lot of people are afraid that it's going to take over jobs, like, for example, copywriters. But copywriters are just going to be able to evolve and do more difficult things, so there's always a way to reinvent yourself in spite of anything that's coming new that could potentially take some of the tasks that you're doing. So I really don't think people have a lot to worry about as long as they are willing to adapt, right?
Yeah, adapt, upskill, reskill. One of the things that I'm hearing a lot about lately with ChatGPT or with AI is that what's called soft skills or human skills are really going to become more and more important. So what are your communication skills? What are your storytelling skills? And, how do you get better at that using technology? But how does the AI plus human be better than human only or AI only? So it's, those skills are also things to really focus on, as long as you're learning about the technology skills as well.
Right. And there's some industries, like, for example, copywriters or, authors, maybe they feel a little bit more vulnerable with AI versus, say, a mental health therapist, because AI is never going to be able to replace a mental health therapist because of that interaction, that communication, that conversation, that empathy, that emotional support. So I think there are some industries that are a little bit more vulnerable than others, for sure.
Maybe, but there's also cases already where people are developing relationships with AI, and they have a AI friend, AI girlfriend or boyfriend, and really getting, that emotional support from this AI who tells them everything they want to hear.
That's so interesting.
So,
I had not heard it.
yeah,
Although there was that movie, I think it was called Her or
yeah,
something. It was,
yeah,
no, it
yeah,
was
that's,
exactly that, where
hmm
the actor was falling in love
yeah,
with this whatever it was, an AI phone or whatever it was, this
right,
entity,
yeah,
and it was exactly that. So
yeah.
I'm not surprised to read the script, but I had not.
Yeah,
I wondered about that, and now you've
yeah,
confirmed
it's happening. There's
it.
also in the healthcare industry, particularly dealing with elderly people who are less mobile, and there's an epidemic of loneliness that there is advancing use of robots
Mm.
as companions and as caretakers, and so I really I don't know if any industry is really immune to it. I thought, okay, a massage therapist, but there is a new machine out that,
No.
is gives you program in, what type of massage you want, where you need extra attention.
Well,
And,
if
you
you
know,
think about it, when you go get a pedicure, you sit in those chairs and it has all that programming. So
right,
to take a matter of taking that programming
right.
and incorporating
Yeah,
the generative AI there. That
yeah,
is so interesting. I really love how we are evolving and changing and doing things completely different. So one of the things that I wanted to make sure that we talked about is I think it was Flex Jobs did a survey and they surveyed 5,600 people and 24%, so almost one in every four people are using generative AI to optimize their job search.
hmm
So if one out of four people are using it, that means that the other three people that are not have no chance because
right,
these people, I mean, we're using job scan for the applicant tracking system optimization. So if you submit a resume and job scan, which is an AI tool, it'll give you a score and it'll say, okay, it'll be like a color green. This is good for you to apply for this particular job.
all right,
But the gone are the days where people use one resume and they submit the
right,
same resume to all the jobs. Now what we're recommending as career coaches is you have to optimize each resume that you submit for that specific job.
right,
And if you're not doing that, then you're going to be those three out of four people that are not, applying successfully for jobs.
hmm
So there's so much you can do with AI, and it's not very difficult. So if you have no experience using AI, you can still use it successfully pretty much instantly. So for all of those that are listening to this episode and you haven't used AI, again, I'm going to put a link in the episode website so that you can go create a free account and just start playing with it, and you will see pretty quickly the power of this technology that is no with no qualms of taking over the world as it
right,
already has.
yeah. Yeah, I've also used it for, people, it might be helpful to your listeners, even if you have a meeting coming up and, give ChatGPT a brief description about your meeting, what your goals are, and have it write an agenda for you. And you'll see how quickly that happens. And then,
Yeah.
of course, you'll probably need to tailor it and say, oh, that's not right. And, oh, I forgot about this. You might also have, suggestions that you like that you hadn't thought about it. But it's going to give you a first draft for a meeting in, a couple of minutes, including, your prompt. And I think just doing that is kind of you'll see the productivity increase, the potential for it of like, wow, if I didn't have to spend a half an hour, thinking about this and writing it, and I got it in a couple minutes, and then you can go on from there.
Yeah. I think I don't remember if I said this to you last time that we spoke or not, but the other day I had ground beef. I had onions and tomatoes, and I was like, okay, ChatGPT, what can I do? What recipe can I do with this? And it like I put it in, and it gave me a whole recipe. I used it, and it was great.
Oh, that's
So,
great.
I've also heard people, parents of young kids, write stories for them, like
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of times you like
Yep.
or you're tired of reading the same kids' books or what,
Right.
so you can, have it write a story for you
Right.
with particular things that are specific to that child's liking. So
Right.
it is just astronomical. Okay, well, and you have given us an amount of, or an incredible amount of amazing information. If you were to leave your or our listeners with one final actionable tip, what would that be for them?
I would say that really accepting that we're in a new phase of our lives and really being proactive about, what's one thing you're going to go do in order to, upskill or reskill. Just start with one thing. And maybe it's spending 15 minutes a day on ChatGPT. Maybe it's talking to your manager about what are the skill sets that I'm going to, need in the next couple of years. Or maybe it's joining an industry group where you can participate in identifying trends. But I would really start exploring. I would put some time on your calendar to start exploring the new skill sets that you're going to need. And that will, I think, open up many, many doors for you so that you can then start to make a plan about, okay, what are these, in relation to my goals, what are the things that I need to learn? What do I need to unlearn? And how am I going to go, about that process, and really take charge and be a part of this, AI revolution.
That's amazing. I think one of the things that really stood out for me there is the part of what do we need to unlearn
Mm-hmm.
because we're so programmed in our brain.
Yeah,
So,
it's
so
really
one,
important.
yeah, wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
That is a very insightful conversation because it's all AI related. I'm going to quickly break down some of the key highlights for me about the conversation that I just had with Ann. The first one is that change is non-negotiable. AI is here to stay, you guys, and adaptability is no longer just a buzzword. It is a must-have skill for every professional. The second key takeaway is it is time for us to skill up or level up. Ann says that 65% of the skills needed for our jobs will change by 2030, and that's just 5 years away. So start exploring and training on new tools right now. And then the third key takeaway is that unlearning is a key skill, meaning letting go of outdated habits and mindsets is just as important as learning new skills. And leaves us with one actionable tip. She says, block 15 minutes a day to explore ChatGPT or a new AI tool. Start small, stay curious, and watch how quickly you build momentum. All of Ann's contact information is going to be on the episode website. And as a reminder, don't forget to take the promotion readiness quiz to see where you stand in landing your next big promotion. And I invite you to check out our Unlock the Leader Within membership. It is your ultimate career accelerator, but more than anything, you will grow alongside other ambitious women. The links to both of those are also going to be on the episode website. So today's episode gave you a quick start on what AI adaptability are going to be like in the future. So you've got the tools. So now go and make it happen. That's it for today. Remember to be brave, be bold, and take action.